Well, hello, and welcome to New Mommy at 40 podcast, where we hold space for those entering or currently in parenthood at an seasoned stage of life, their 40s. I'm your host, Victoria. Whether you're new here or visiting us again, thank you for stopping by. Come on in, put up your feet, and enjoy being in the company of someone who gets you and the amazing and exhausting journey you've taken on. While you wait for our guest today, click on that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss a future episode. Right now. Oh, and follow us at New Mommy at 40 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. All right, here we go. It didn't happen in my 20s. Who cares? Now I've got all this fancy wisdom to share. Hey, I've got this baby, you're getting the best of me, 'cause I'm a new mommy at 40. Not on the wall. Great. Today we get to sit with someone who is known to all who know her as the light in the room. Melissa Celento is a single mom in her 40s to a 5-year-old daughter, a child that due to multiple fibroid issues was told would be impossible to have without fertility assistance. But after a recent breakup with her boyfriend, she was stunned to learn at her annual checkup that, surprise, she was pregnant. Melissa candidly shares her difficult yet beautiful journey through an unplanned pregnancy and how motherhood is the best thing that has ever happened to her. She'll also talk about the importance of a support system when having an unplanned pregnancy and what you can do for a friend in that situation. You're going to love her, and get ready. Her laugh is absolutely infectious. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited for our talk because I want to thank you publicly for being one of the people who were there for me when I got my polycystic ovarian syndrome diagnosis and my fibroids, because I just remember us, Melissa and I used to work together at an airline. She's there now. And I don't remember how it came up, but you were one of the first people that I spoke to, and you just, your face just told me, the struggle, even though you had something a little different. And we'll talk about that a little later. Mm-hmm. But thank you so much, because it is definitely unexpected news. And we often find out, right? And we often find out when we're either planning or in a relation or thinking about it. So I wanted to just publicly thank you while I had the chance. But
you're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, honey. For you were talking to me a little earlier when we were kind of getting ready for this chat that in your own family history that there were fertility issues in your mom, right?
My mom. Yeah. It took my parents about 7 years to have me. So wow. They went through the gamut of endometriosis and all kinds of, roadblocks, I guess would be for lack of a better word, or phrase would be a lot of roadblocks. It was, surgeries, and, we're also talking about the 1970s, and things are not quite as advanced as they are today. How about that?
Yeah.
So my mom was on a lot of fertility drugs that are now significantly frowned upon today. So, I don't know if any of those things affected me or if it was just the luck of the draw. I don't know.
No, we got really lucky in having Melissa Celento in the world. I'm very thankful for all of the fertility drugs that are no longer an option, right? Yes. For bringing you to us.
Way. Yeah. As I tell everybody, those bad drugs paved the way for the new stuff. So I guess.
Yeah. Except your mom had to pay for it. Poor mama.
Yes. And so did a lot of other couples, a lot of other, who were trying to conceive, unfortunately. So,
yeah. But so for you, did you think that you'd have similar issues?
Not a clue. I never suspected once that I would run into finding out what I ultimately found out I think it was in my mid to late 20s, I think, when I first discovered that I had fibroids.
Wow.
And it was because I kept getting multiple UTIs.
Yes.
For no apparent reason anywhere. I drink a lot of water. The
cranberry juice and
yes,
all that stuff.
all the stuff, all the things, and to find out that through just a simple ultrasound that I was filled with fibroids. It was a shock.
A life-changing,
I never
I
would have
bet.
suspected. It is a big life changer. It makes you figure out if motherhood is a journey you want to go down, because you know at this point that the fibroids can't be there. Or they shouldn't be there. And then you also try to find out, then you find out what your alternatives are, because I mean, literally both of my physicians at the time said, you will not be able to get pregnant without help. There is no possible way from going on forward, that you will be able to get pregnant without help. This will not happen the old fashioned way.
Right. And this was in your 20s. That you found out.
This is in my late 20s. Yes.
So I also found out about my PCOS. I was definitely in my 30s. But when you hear, you may have issues and you may not be able to do this naturally, immediately my thought went, ka-ching. I was like, okay, so that's going to require money.
A lot
of money. And I don't think that that's something I will be able to do when you start looking at the numbers. So did that affect you in terms of dating wise too? Just kind of like, well, it's not gonna happen by accident. Like, should I just enjoy my flight attendant life and travel? Exactly.
Immediately, my OB at the time, he and she, actually, both of them, put me on a low dose. I was already on the birth control pill, because I was having issues with, my cycle. It was never regular. And now finding out into my late 20s, it all starts to come together and make sense. So my cycle was never regular. The cramps, holy cow, were like mind numbing, to the point where you couldn't think. You really couldn't. You didn't function for the first 24 hours. You really just couldn't. And they put me on a low dose of the pill to try to keep the fibroids at bay. And it worked for a little while. And, I didn't get as many UTIs and things like that. But I knew I was going to be on the pill for the rest of my life, no matter what. So she literally said, you can go off in 2 to 3 month intervals, and then you have to go right back on.
What were you thinking when she said this? It's like, for the rest of my life?
I literally looked at, it's the absolute shock cleanse is what I call it.
Yeah.
And then it's the realization of, okay, so if I'm going to go down this road, I have to find a partner who's going to be patient, who hopefully is financially stable. Because guess what?
Right.
And
because you might need you're thinking of that already in terms of, we're going to have a struggle and we're going to have to put some money down into this. So
it's
the fact that that's playing into your dating profile.
Yes, exactly. What is your occupation? What is your financial background? It's like, all these other things. I mean, you literally feel like when you're dating that you're setting up somebody for a job interview.
Yeah.
And that's not what dating is supposed to be. I mean, does that make sense?
Oh no, of course.
Yeah. So,
it's like, okay, I want kids. So do I bring this up now in the beginning of getting to know you phase? Is that the best way to go? And just be honest. Do I blurt this out during dinner? And like, hey, hi. Oh, great
what?
tie. I want to have kids. Do you? Because it's going to be a struggle. Like, that's hard.
It could take 2 or 3 years for that to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the shock cleanse, I guess. And then your way of thinking kind of changes from there on out. I think the one thing that really helped me, and I don't know if this helps, I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but my brother ended up having triplets. So in the midst of me finding out, and here I am now in my mid 30s, and my nieces are now 10, almost 11. My brother and announced that they're having triplets. And I'm like, yes, like, this is great. I have 3 nieces immediately. And not that the pressure was on, but it was like, I have so much love, and I'm going to be around to help raise these 3 little beings who are hysterical and obviously take after me. No, I'm like,
right. They obviously take after Auntie
obviously.
Melissa.
Hello. But just the idea that it was really exciting that I was okay with being an aunt.
But that says a lot about you, too, that you would look at the positive of this and go, well, I have 3 little beings to love. And boy, would your hands be full. I mean, that's not just being an auntie to 1, to being like to 3.
3. And I was there all the time. I mean, I used to literally, I would do a red eye. I would go home and I would sleep. And then, this is when they were infants. And then I would pick up dinner, go over to their house, and it was like we were off to the races, where at least I helped with the overnight shift 1 or 2 nights a week whenever I could. I was the overnight because I was already on the red eye schedule. So, okay, like I'll be up overnight helping with the feeds and whatever when they were still eating every 2 to 3 hours or whatever. And it was great. It was awesome. It was like having my own kids, but not having my own kids.
Did you find... fantastic. Because for me, I went through something similar too, in terms of when I found out that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. I was, I think I was 33 or 34. And I remember being thankful too that I had nieces and nephews. And it did kind of quell my desire. I just thought, if this doesn't happen to me, I'll be okay. But the if part still is there. Right?
It's always there.
Yeah.
The if is always there. I have an if now. The if for me is, because I now have a daughter, is what if I should have had another one? Or, did I jump the gun? And we'll get to why I say jump the gun in a few minutes, I'm sure. So,
let's talk about your dating. And go back into a little bit about how that colored who you were looking for, what you were doing, how you were enjoying your super single flight attendant traveling around the world life. I want to hear about the fabulous life. The one that everyone thinks that we have. But to a degree, we did. But there's aspects, right?
Who wants to lug around 40 pounds of luggage through an airport, in heels?
In heels.
In heels.
Yeah.
In heels.
It's about the layovers.
Totally. 1,000%. It is. It really is. And I was still doing layovers. I didn't have... At the time, I was also working in a restaurant at home. I was either bartending or serving. I had friends that, I'd met in the industry, and they're like, oh, hey, we're having a Christmas party. Can you come bartend our Christmas party? Other than that, I was done with the 2 a.m. thing.
Right.
I would waitress. I would, work 2 or 3 doubles, call it a day. And then I would fly, really, as we call them, princess trips, where I had 24-hour layovers on the West Coast, and I'd go to IKEA, and we'd go to dinner, and we'd have a great time, and like whatever, We'd hit
just give us a juicy. You're talking about IKEA. We want to hear about the hookups. What are you talking about?
So I met a guy here in Rochester. He was 10 years younger than me. Should have been the first clue. And I loved that he had nieces, and he loved his nieces. He was a great family man. And his mom was one of 6 or 7 kids. There was always family around. His sister had circumstances that she had moved back in with his parents, with her 2 girls. So there was always young life around, and he was a part of it. He helped watch them. He helped take care of them, whatever everybody needed. Right. So lots of cousins. And we dated, and obviously we ended up falling in love. We were together about 2.5 years. And I'm like, you just got to get your stuff together, man. I'm like, because I'm almost 40 and I'm thinking like, let's go. And my nieces took to him like, I was shocked. All three of them, specifically my niece, Emily, absolutely adored him. And, you couldn't have planned it better, but, there were like little signs that, it's like, get it together, like, come on, like I'm almost 40 and now I'm still thinking in the back of my head, oh boy, like all the things that I should have been like part of the job interview questions, I kind of dismissed half of them. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what I was thinking. You realize I don't think I ever asked those questions is one way that this can go, which is how it went for you. You held on to some of those questions and then you start seeing these signs. So what were some of the signs that you saw? So we heard about why he seemed to be a good candidate on paper.
On paper.
So what were the signs? What were some of the signs that you saw that probably this isn't going to go the way that I think it's going to go?
Yeah. I mean, just he like kind of dragged his feet on finishing his degree and, getting a job and, that really utilized his skills. I mean, he had aspirations, but the aspirations don't mean anything unless you act on them. Mm-hmm. And he took a job in about an hour from here. Mm-hmm. And so, there were, nights where he would spend, he would just stay over an hour from here instead of coming back to Rochester. And I'm like, okay. So it was kind of like he was having his cake and eating it too. He's out partying with friends that he's met at work, video gaming and God knows what else. And, and I'm like, okay. And I had just bought a house. So this was...
See how you guys are in totally different planes, it sounds like, too.
Opposites.
Right? Those totally. 10 years, too, I think made a huge...
Big time.
You're a house owner, and he's not.
And he's not.
So in a way, I guess he was doing age-appropriate things, but...
in a way, yeah.
Right? You were doing age-appropriate things.
Yeah, right?
They just weren't... Yeah. They weren't aligning.
No, not even close. Not even close. So I had enough. We had gone on vacation in February. It was insanely cold where we went on vacation. It was unseasonably cold. I came home. I was very sick. Ended up on a multitude of antibiotics for about 2 weeks. Things started to... I don't want to say that they were good when we got home from vacation. And then I was sick. I mean, I was sicker than a dog for like 2 or 3 weeks. I came home and there were too many red flags that. So
all of this, this sickness kind of took, you had enough time to reveal, to think about this relationship. Yeah. So now where do you get to the point of I'm done?
That was the beginning of May. And I said, no more. I said, I literally had come home from a trip and I don't care if you have friends over, but I mean, he drank his face off for the 3 days I was gone. And I'm like, how are you functioning, getting up in the morning and driving an hour to work? I don't understand how that
Melissa,
happens.
We did this in our 20s.
We did. And yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's what it was. He was 30.
Yeah.
He was in his 30s.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But I'm like, get it together. Like, I mean, I just bought a house. You moved in with me. Like, mow the lawn. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Help me out here. I don't ask for much.
To get her lawn mowed. I mean, can you do something?
Can you just help a girl?
Trash out?
Oh, exactly. Help me out. Well, he did, but he left all the evidence in my garage of the
3-day drinking binge.
Yeah, the drinking binge he went on when I was gone. So whatever. And I just said, we're done. I just, we all hit that point, and maybe it was a culmination of the fact that I was sick you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I really was. Maybe it was a combination of just being sick and not feeling well for like 3 weeks. And then, I'm finally back to work because in my mind, I got to work. I now have a mortgage and I have a car payment and I have responsibilities and I was in the middle of painting my house and refinishing my hardwoods. And, I have a honey-do list,
right. with no honey to
do it. Exactly. So here we go, and I was like, you know what? I can do this without you. And I don't need you around. So I literally was like, done. And then bump, bump, bump. Week later, I go for my annual.
Oh my goodness.
And I will swear to you on the cross, I was never sick on the plane. I was never sick at home. Like morning sickness, night sickness. I had zero signs that I was expecting. Zero. You
weren't even thinking it was possible because you had been told that it wasn't going to happen naturally.
Never.
Wow.
Yeah.
How far along were you?
5 weeks. Yeah, you want to see, this was, literally, God bless Jen, who was the nurse there that day. And I knew all the girls in the office because they're laughing. They're like, oh, how's flying? Tell us about your funny stories. Because, every flight attendant's got a funny story, from this week.
Yeah.
This week, So it was just, we're laughing and we're joking. And I can remember looking at her, saying to her, that test better be negative because I threw him out last week. And the color ran out of her face.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, and so I'm still laughing and joking. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, she's not saying anything. And we start walking down the hall and I looked at her and I said, that test wasn't negative, was it? She just shook her head. No. And I was barely inside the door to the room and I just puddled myself into the chair. And she said, you can't hyperventilate on me. You can't hyperventilate. I said, and she goes, I know what you're going to say. She goes, I know you just said that you threw him out last week. She goes, but I don't know what to do. And lo and behold, Jen was having her own fertility issues. Oh. So here I am again. And, so it's now we're full circle. So, But from the moment I found out, it was like, you're off to the races. First of all, my OB looks at me and she said, how did this happen? Now, that isn't the exact words that she said, by the way.
Right. It's a family show.
It's a family show. She walks in the room. She takes one look and I'm bawling. And she said, how did this happen? And I said, well, you're the physician. We know how this happened.
So the birds and the bees.
She's like, I need to know about your life for the last 2 months.
Okay.
And I said, okay. I said, well, we went on vacation. I came home. I was really sick. I said, I'm like, I ended up on azithromycin and Augmentin and God knows what else. And she went, how long were you on these medications? And so I told her it was about 2 weeks, I think, give or take. And I said, I was really careful because I know, if you don't want something to happen, you have to be careful about it. Mm-hmm. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, I'm not going to be able to get pregnant without help.
Right.
So here we go. So she said, she looked at me, she goes, that's it. And she said, she goes, you are a medical miracle. I'm going to tell you that right now. Wow. She said, but now she goes, and then she says, but now we have a problem. And I go, and what's that? Well, you still have all those fibroids. So the appointment that we were supposed to have today at your annual was getting rid of all those fibroids in the event that you may think about having a child or starting a family. She said, and now we can't do that because the risks are far greater than anything else at this point. She goes, no, she basically said, now we are in conservation mode and survival mode when it comes to your unborn child. And I said, okay.
Wow.
And here we go.
Wow.
And off to the races.
Yeah. And gun shot. Yeah.
Literally.
So when it came to the pregnancy, how was the pregnancy? Because these fibroids, were they in the way of the
always
fetus? Oh, wow.
Always.
So were you on bed rest? Were you able to work through the whole pregnancy?
Ironically, every appointment I had was her trying to pull me out of work. And I said, I'm not ready. I said, if you're pulling me out of work, you need to send me home with a script with Xanax. So,
and a paycheck. And a deposit in my bank account. Yeah.
I am not ready to go home yet or be home. And then this is kind of how things unraveled a little bit. We had an emergency landing, and I had an appointment the following day, and everything obviously was okay. And so the emergency landing, went well. I got home, I went to an appointment the next day, and this was mid-September. And I looked at her and I said, what do you think if I, stopped working like October 26th? I've never seen her whip out her notepad fast enough and write me a doctor's note and say, done, because she had been trying to pull me out of work since July. Wow. And I was just like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And I'd already been in the hospital once at this point, where they thought that my appendix had ruptured, and it was the fibroids breaking down.
It's painful.
Yes.
I've had that too.
Very,
very painful.
So it's my daughter. So as she was getting bigger, she was taking all the hormones, and they were dying off. The fibroids were dying off.
Right.
So, and they said she had prepped me for this up until this point, but literally I had a moment where I drove myself to the hospital because I literally thought I was in big trouble, that my appendix was rupturing. So, we in the hospital, the whole nine, I got to know all the nurses, and it was a blessing in disguise because I had ended up at triage probably 2 or 3 more times after that.
Wow.
So, and this was in August when I had an overnight stay because they thought my appendix was rupturing. So that was in August of 2016. And then I finally went out of work October 26th, and she was born herself December 22nd.
Oh, wow. So, and how old were you by the time she was born? Like
39.
39. Wow.
Advanced maternal age.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Geriatric. At its best.
Yes. Definitely. You are older, old. And I said, so
and then oldest.
Yeah. Right. And it's funny because, one of the things you and I have talked about in the past was, hearing not people, but just hearing things in general about, why did you wait so long? Or, are you going to hurry up and have another? And
yes. I get that all the time. Girl, like, you better hurry up.
I like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up every time I hear that. I was always, and it wasn't that I never wanted more than one, but I always, from the moment I was in my 20s, I said, I'm a one and done.
Well, you didn't even know if you could have one.
And that's exactly it. Exactly. Right.
I just think in general, people shouldn't ask that question. It's like the hurry up part. I've never understood that one.
I don't get it.
It's just not something you say to someone.
No.
I've never felt comfortable saying that to somebody. Oh. If anything, I've been guilty of in the past of saying has been, do you plan on having more? I've stopped asking that question because the way that I phrased it, do you plan? Mm-hmm. I understand that where it was innocently, and I was thinking that I was giving that power to the person to answer it in a way that wasn't making them feel like they had to. It was more of, do you plan? I thought it would be an easy, no, I don't, or yes, I do. But even that I've stopped asking because that plan word, especially for those of us who are at the stage of life, I don't really control too much of that plan anymore. I can do fertility treatments. I can try to do IVF. I can do lots of, there are options, obviously, but at best, I can hope for the outcome that I want. Do you know what I'm saying? But I can't plan. I can't plan it. I can just try and see what happens. So I've stopped asking that question in that way. But I've heard, hurry up. You're not getting any younger. You better get that second one. I've even been, how about this one? Hurry up before you change your mind. Now that might have some credibility.
Now let me just tell you.
That might have some credibility. Okay.
That I will agree with 100%, because as they get older, they become more self-sufficient. And I will say this, I have my brother, for instance, after having the 3 triplets, they also went through some fertility issues themselves, which, I mean, they have naturally occurring triplets because they have a set of identical twins and then their fraternal twin. However, I will say that I have another niece who is 10 weeks younger than my daughter. So they are basically being raised as sisters.
Yeah.
And they for 6 years, they went through their own infertility issues of failed attempts and et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, hurry up doesn't always happen. And I just, when people are like, oh, do you think you want to have another one? And I love my OB, and she said, I'm going to do the worrying for you and I so that you don't worry, because your only job right now is to keep her in you until 35 weeks. Noted.
Yeah.
And
done. Thank you. I will do that.
Yes, I will do that. I mean, she told me to get my affairs in order. This was like the middle of November. And I remember I had a baby shower at the beginning of November. She tells me the middle of November to get my affairs in order. I literally Black Friday shopped my way into preterm labor and ended up at triage, one of my visits at triage the Monday after Thanksgiving. And, she had me on house arrest, as she called it. And I went, have we met? I mean, she knew I wasn't. She's like, you're on house arrest. And I go, I'm not on house arrest. I'm like, I am. First of all, I'm not Martha Stewart, number one. Number two, I'm like, I don't know what this house arrest thing is and where you think. I'm like, how long have we known each other? That's not happening. No.
Listen, the reason why a lot of people end up in the flight attendant industry or the airline industry is because we cannot be tied down.
No,
we don't sit. We need to move. So that was probably an unrealistic ask.
I just used to laugh at her, but yeah.
So, but going back to like this idea of hurry up. I mean, here's this miracle,
right,
of a child that you have now. You know, the idea of having more. Sure, I'm sure, all me included. If I could have started in my 20s. I would love to, but I mean, but I don't. And here we are, and you have this beautiful baby girl. She's not a baby anymore. What's her name and how old is she?
Lucy, and she is 5. She turned 5 December 22nd.
Oh,
so
I love that name, Lucy.
My little bubby.
Oh,
the little munchkin.
She's super cute. Super cute. You guys think Melissa's cute. She's cute.
I don't know about all that, but yes, thank you. You're very kind.
She's a cutie pie. So now, how did this boyfriend of yours, he's been kicked to the curb, but now he's a dad. How was that conversation?
There wasn't a lot of conversation. I got to be honest. I think it was more so, I'll be there to support you, but there was never any communication on his part. And I literally was like, if you want to be there and you want to be there for an ultrasound or you want to be there for an appointment, I'm like, give me your work schedule. I'll be happy to try to, make appointments around your work schedule, whatever. I'm like, crickets. Most of the time it was complete crickets. And I don't, I think things have a funny way of happening in that there is no communication with him at all. I mean, and there hasn't been since I was pregnant. So, he's never met her. I know he has seen a picture of her, when she was a newborn. I don't, I have zero ties with him at all, which is unfortunate because, I really would have liked to have had his grandmother meet her. And unfortunately she has passed. So, but I think she's better off for it. And I don't mean that maliciously. I think he needs to do some growing up, and start being responsible for himself before he can be responsible for somebody else.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe they'll turn around. Maybe that's something you'll be interested to. Maybe you're not. Maybe it's up. Maybe Lucy will be, will want to get to know him, and maybe she won't. I guess there are a lot of ifs there. But the fact that you suddenly, I mean, I know you weren't in a relationship, but I'm pretty sure you felt that you would have at least some partnership in the pregnancy and
1,000%.
Yeah. So how was that? How were you emotionally after that? Because you seem okay now, but in the moment.
I think it was a lot to absorb. It really was. I mean, there's no other way to sugarcoat it. It was it's a shock, number one, because, like we have said repeatedly, I should not have been able to get pregnant without help. And then, finding out I was, and then finding out how high risk I was from the get-go because of the fibroid specifically, was a lot to absorb. But I had to just focus on one day at a time and taking care of myself, because now it wasn't just about me. It was about somebody, it was another human being, so taking care of myself was my biggest priority. It didn't really sink in until, I would say probably a week after I got home from the hospital.
With her? With Lucy?
Yeah, with her. Yeah. And I just kind of looked around and I'm like, well, we're going to do this. This is it. Like, it's like, that's why, one of the things that I say a lot, and I'm going to get emotional.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Is to get your friends involved.
Yeah. To have some type of community around you, because it's overwhelming. Even
very much so.
Yeah. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
That must have felt, no, it's okay. That must have felt very alone. It's in a way you're not alone, because you're looking at this beautiful little face looking back at you.
Yeah.
And you realize,
totally.
This is us. It's you and me. But to look around and feel like, where's our little tribe? Like, who's our tribe? Who's our little...
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you...
Totally.
So, but you do have a lot of people who care about you and love you. But at the time, was it the fact that, was it difficult to ask for help? Or were you disappointed? Were there people that you expected that would be there naturally and that just weren't, outside of him?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. There were probably people that were there before she was born that kind of just did their own thing after she was born. And, we're like, oh, we're going to babysit and we're going to do this. And I'm like, so where are you? You know what I mean? And It wasn't like I really needed somebody to like babysit. My parents are a tremendous help so I can go to work. And, one of my closest friends, she and her daughters worship the ground that Lucy walks on. And they're now, one is a law student and the other one is a pre-med student. So it's like, they're, like, it's like their little sister, like kind of deal. But I did the same thing with her kids when they were, her age.
Right. So is it the fact that most of your friends had older kids or were single and didn't quite they weren't in your world?
A lot of them were already married. A lot of them are married and already had kids.
Yeah.
So, they were helpful, in the sense of everyone wants to give you advice. I don't know if you ever had that. Oh yeah. I mean, that was just like, okay, like in the hospital, like everyone wants to give you advice, but that is medical advice. That is from the lactation specialist and your nurse and, the multiple, the pediatrician coming in to check on your newborn. And, everyone has that's unsolicited or solicited or expected medical advice. When you have the child and, you're home, everyone has an opinion about everything, everything, unsolicited or not. And that is almost more overwhelming than having a child. And I will say that to this day, because I don't offer any unsolicited advice unless people ask me for it, especially when it comes to child rearing, because what works for you isn't going to work for me. And it's not going to work for the next person.
Yeah.
So everyone's on their own journey. And I've said that from the get-go.
Yeah. It's a balance of having a community around you there to support you. I think probably the most important thing someone's ever asked me is, how can I support you? Is totally different than just spewing out, advice. It's like you're there, but you're also letting me do my thing, but you're letting me know that I'm there for you if you need me. Would you say that's like probably the best way to support someone?
1,000%.
Yeah. And I'm sure that would have made a world of difference for you, too. So when did you ever get to a place of having a little community for you and Lucy, or is it still pretty much you and her?
Well, it's mostly, it's her and I. We don't hesitate to get on an airplane and go somewhere, mostly because she's like, Mommy, let's go to blah, blah, blah. Or, I have family down in New Orleans, so we've hopped on a plane several times, obviously before COVID. I feel like everything is BC now. Right?
You're right.
I know, right? She's a huge fan of Disney World, which is 100,000% my fault. 1,000% my fault. So yeah, we're actually going to escape a little bit. Next month. But as far as the tribe, I definitely have a tribe. I mean, my parents, my brother, his significant other, she's amazing. And, my friend Amy and her 2 girls, amazing. My friend Connie, she's every week. How you doing? What's going on? What's new? I definitely have a tribe,
And I think that's important. I think it's important to have, and I'm glad to hear you say that now, going from that feeling of when you were with Lucy, that week after, to where you are now. And it seems, that's helped you thrive in your motherhood journey.
Oh, totally.
Fantastic. So
I do have a handful of friends who are single parents as well. One has a kind of sort of similar circumstance than I do, as far as the dad being involved, or he was involved, not being involved. Now he's not involved. And our daughters are 11 months apart. So that's pretty cool. That was very helpful, I will say too. When she saw that I was pregnant on social media, because I really had not announced that I was pregnant. I mean, because immediately it's a lot of questions and it's a lot of explanations and it's a lot of
who, what, where,
yeah.
how?
And I'm already dealing with, I've got to start taking care of myself because, like I said, it isn't just about me anymore. It's about another human being that I have to make sure I'm eating 3 meals a day or more, and I'm drinking enough water, and I'm taking my vitamins, and I'm keeping her in until 35 weeks because that's the goal.
Right.
35 weeks was always the magic number. So I will say that my one girlfriend, Shauna, was so helpful. Like as soon as she found out that I was pregnant, she's like, come over. I've got stuff for you, blah, blah, blah. I was just going to give it away, but come over and take whatever you need.
Oh, that's
and
the best thing. I'll tell you what, being pregnant older and having all your other older friends, your same age friends would have older kids. The stuff that I got strollers and clothes and I was just like, this is the business. That was the fun part because I had all this stuff that they were like, here, just take it off our hands. Like, here you go. Is there something that has surprised you about motherhood so far?
That's a good question. And I'm not watching. I guess the biggest one would be raising another human to be kind and to not get caught up in what everybody else thinks. That's the biggest thing about motherhood for me. It's just trying to raise her to be a person, and in the middle of a pandemic besides, because these last almost 3 years, 2 years now, are probably the most formative. Specifically, I mean, she's now 5. So, I mean, she remembers a little bit of what it was like before the pandemic, but trying to keep her life as normal as possible during a pandemic is like I don't even know. I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm trying.
Listen, you're doing the best that you possibly can.
I think we all are.
I don't know if there's anything like this in our history, to compare to.
No.
I mean, they're growing up looking at people's eyes. They're going to be great eye readers. They're going to go, that's BS. I don't look at his eyes because, between masks and politicize the world. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Like sometimes I worry about that too. Like
be extremely independent. I mean, as much as you want your child to be independent, you also want them to be socialized. And I think that's probably been the biggest surprise is, how independent she is through all of this, even beforehand. My mom laughs at me all the time. She's like, well, you said you wanted to raise her to be independent. I'm like, I didn't think it was going to be this independent. Like
she's really independent.
Independent. Like she literally will just be like, Mommy, I need privacy. And I'm like, what? What is that? When did you learn the word privacy? And how do you know what that means?
That's so funny, but it's what you want. But I think it definitely feels like an out of body experience watching this person that you've had that was in you graduate to the point of progress and say, I want privacy, Mommy. It's a lot.
Mommy, I need some privacy. I'm just going to read my books and I just need you to leave me alone. And I'm like, okay. Never mind that Mommy's home for, 3 or 4 days before I have to leave for another 2. It's okay. Like whatever. Yeah.
And especially with you and what you do, I mean, time is precious, right? Because you can go away for 3 days and there'll be a totally different kid. A new skill learned in that time frame. Right.
Right. And I was finding that a lot when she was little. A lot. And it was like, there was a lot of time where I felt like, okay, I need to quit this job. I need to find something else to do and I can't be away. But at the same respect, thank God for this job because I really got to be around a lot more than most parents get to be around, especially when their kids are that little, working, 8 to 10 days a month. How do you, it's so, it's hard. It's hard to give up that kind of time and hard to give up that kind of flexibility. I mean, I voluntarily took 14 months off during the pandemic, and it was the best 14 months of my life. Being home with her every day was like, oh, I mean, this is like, we played and we had dance parties, and she knows all the crazy boy bands I used to listen to in the 90s.
Yeah, I remember you being a big NKOTB fan.
Right, and Backstreet Boys. And I mean, she knows she knows all the songs. She talks to Alexa now. I mean, in my kitchen.
That's awesome.
So it's been incredible.
That's awesome. And hats off to you for dealing with something so unexpected, but clearly that was the path that you were supposed to be on. She was just meant to be here.
Totally.
And she was meant to be yours. So.
Oh, yeah. The poor kid. I know.
Lucky kid. Lucky, blessed kid. Lucky and blessed kid. You're awesome.
And that's right.
You're awesome.
Thanks, sweetheart. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks again to Melissa for joining us today. I really admire how she was able to find her way through a difficult situation and that it resulted in her living the life which was specifically designed for her. I can't stress enough the importance of having a support system. As mothers, as older parents, it truly makes a difference, as Melissa so emotionally shared with us. If you are in a similar situation, please know that wherever your path along that journey takes you, you're not alone. Thanks, everyone. Please don't forget to subscribe or follow this podcast wherever you're listening to us right now. And follow New Mommy at 40 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Take care of yourself and each other.